Published 0430s, the 7th of November 2017. Updated 0507s, the 7th of November 2017. The former U.S. serviceman who shot 26 worshippers to death during Sunday prayers in Texas stormed into the church dressed as the Grim Reaper, wearing a black bulletproof vest and skull mask, officials said. Devin Patrick Kelly's rampage at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs reportedly came after a dispute with his in-laws, who often attend services but weren't there the day of the shooting. The gunman walked up and down the church aisles shooting people on the ground and between the pews, according to an account given to CNN by David Brown, the son of one of the wounded survivors, 73-year-old Farida Brown, who was shot in both legs. Devin Patrick Kelly, pictured left and right, walked into the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, dressed in full combat gear, and began shooting Sunday. People listened to speakers during a prayer service held to remember the 26 victims killed at the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas, on Monday, a day after Kelly went on a rampage in the church. A group of people pray in a field during a vigil with the 26 crosses in the background representing the 26 victims while investigators work at the scene of a mass shooting at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. A woman and two young girls attend a vigil for the 26 victims of Sunday's shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Brown said his mother told him the first shots came through the windows, then the assailant walked through the front door and started shooting, opening fire even at those diving on the floor for cover or attempting to flee. Farida Brown was in the last pew, beside a woman who was shot multiple times. Her son told CNN she was pretty certain she was next, and her life was about to end. Then somebody with a gun showed up at the front of the church, caught the shooter's attention. He left and that was the end of the ordeal, David Brown said. The attack, which killed 26 and injured 20, came about a month after a gunman killed 58 people in Las Vegas in the deadliest shooting by a lone assailant in modern U.S. history. Kelly was found dead in his car after fleeing the scene and being chased by witnesses. Investigators believe he died of a self-inflicted gunshot. It appeared family problems may have been a factor in Sunday's bloodshed. Kelly was involved in a domestic dispute with the family of Danielle Shields, a woman he married in 2014, and the situation had flared up, according to officials and public records. There was a domestic situation going on within the family and the in-laws, Martin told reporters outside the church on Monday. The mother-in-law attended the church. She had received threatening text messages from him. Kelly, pictured in his yearbook photo, left and right, as a teenager 26, of New Braunfels, a suburb of San Antonio, fled in his SUV but crashed near county lines following TE8 shooting. Law enforcement officers tracked down Kelly, who went off the road and crashed near county lines. Pictured is the suspect's car, which was found with multiple weapons inside. Kelly didn't waste much time after being released from military prison. In April 2014, then 23-year-old Kelly remarried to 19-year-old Danielle Lee Shields, records back in Texas show. The Pentagon separately disclosed that it had failed to furnish information about the gunman's criminal record from his U.S. Air Force service to a national database that should have prevented him from legally purchasing the firearms he bought. Kelly spent a year in detention before his bad conduct discharge in 2014 following the assault on his first wife and stepson, according to the Pentagon. The Air Force acknowledged on Monday that Kelly's 2012 conviction on 2 counts of domestic violence were never entered into the National Criminal Information Center (NCIC) system, a U.S. government databank used by licensed gun dealers for conducting background checks on firearms purchasers. Federal law forbids anyone from selling or giving a gun to someone convicted of a crime involving domestic violence. A sporting goods retail chain has said Kelly passed background checks when he bought a gun in 2016 and a second firearm the following year. Christopher Combs, special agent in charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation San Antonio Division, said there was nothing in the NCIC or 2 related databases that would have barred Kelly from legally buying any of 3 weapons police recovered from their investigation of the slayings. In rural Texas and in other states, gun ownership is a part of life, and Republican leaders for years have balked at gun control measures, arguing that responsible gun owners can help deter crime. Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott told CBS News there was evidence that Kelly had mental health problems and had been denied a state gun permit. Kelly, who was reportedly married, had recently posted a photo of an AR-15-style gun on his Facebook page with the caption, "She's a bad." Wilson County Sheriff Joe Tackett said the family members were not in the church during Kelly's attack. According to military officials and authorities in 3 states, the 26-year-old Kelly had a history of threatening loved ones with violence. Public records detail Kelly's history of physical abuse, including arrests for animal cruelty and domestic violence. The domestic violence arrest stems from his previous marriage to Tissake Kelly, who he married in Texas in April 2011, while serving as a low-ranking airman in the Air Force. The two were living in New Mexico the following year when Kelly was court-martialed for abusing both his wife and his infant stepson. He assaulted his stepson severely enough that he fractured his skull, and he also assaulted his wife. Don Christensen, a retired colonel who was the chief prosecutor for the Air Force, told the New York Times. He pled to intentionally doing it. In November 2012, a month after his wife filed for divorce, Kelly was sentenced to 12 months confinement and a reduction to the lowest rank. 2 years later, after serving his time, he was discharged from the Air Force for bad conduct, a dismissal that usually precludes ex-servicemen from buying firearms. The shooting happened at the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs pictured, where around 50 people usually attend service. According to local reports, the sun sets behind 26 crosses placed in a field before a vigil for the victims of the First Baptist Church shooting Monday in Sutherland Springs, Texas. It's clear this is a person who had violent tendencies, who had some challenges, Abbott said. Abbott and other Republican politicians said the mass shooting did not influence their support of gun ownership by U.S. citizens, the right to bear arms protected under the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Vice President Mike Pence said on Twitter that he will travel to Sutherland Springs on Wednesday to meet with victims' families and law enforcement. This isn't a gun situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon, U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters while on a trip to Asia. Fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction, otherwise, it would have been much worse. Democrats renewed their call to restrict gun ownership. How many more people must die at churches or concerts or schools before we stop letting the NRA control this country's gun policies? Democratic U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren said on Twitter, referring to the powerful gun lobby, the National Rifle Association. The attack stunned Sutherland Springs, a community of about 400 people with just one blinking yellow traffic light. One family, the Holcomb, lost 8 people from 3 generations in the attack, including Brian Holcomb, an assistant pastor who was leading the service, a relative said. John Stiles, a 76-year-old retired U.S. Navy veteran, said he heard the shots from his home about 150 yards 137 meters away. My wife and I were looking for a peaceful and quiet place when we moved here, but now that hasn't worked out. Annabelle Pomeroy, daughter of First Baptist Church pastor Frank Pomeroy, who was out of town with his wife. Her devastated father said he lost one beautiful girl, and a special child. Annabelle Pomeroy, the 14-year-old daughter of the church pastor, was the first victim identified in Sunday's shooting at the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas on Sunday. Her mother said having fun at the pool was her favorite thing. Brian, Carla, Mark Daniel, Danny and Noah Holcomb. Brian Holcomb had been standing in for Frank Pomeroy when Kelly opened fire. Witnesses say he was the first victim to be struck by the shooter's gunfire. Brian was filling in, a witness told DailyMail.com. He was walking up to the pulpit when he was shot in the back. He was an awesome Christian. He was killed, alongside his wife of 25 years, Sunday school teacher Carla Holcomb. The couple ran a canvas repair shop before retiring and had attended the church for 25 years. My father was a good man and he loved to preach. He had a good heart. They knew where they were going. There's peace in that, their son, Scott Holcomb, told the Herald Tribune. Their son Mark Daniel Danny Holcomb, 36, and his 1-year-old daughter Noah, also died in the gunfire. Sunday school teacher Carla Holcomb and her husband Brian died in the rampage, their family confirmed. Brian had been standing in for Pastor Pomeroy. Mark Daniel Holcomb, known as Danny, pictured wearing glasses, left, and his infant daughter Noah were also among the 26 killed, and the 7th and 8th of the Holcomb family. Crystal Holcomb and her children Megan, Emily and Greg. Brian and Carla's daughter-in-law Crystal, a mother at 5 who was 8 months pregnant, was killed alongside 3 of her children Megan, Emily and Greg. 2 of her other children and her husband John survived the shooting. Crystal was described as a devoted mother. She doesn't even drink, smoke or nothing, said relative Nick Ulig. She just takes care of kids, she raises goats and makes homemade cheese. That kind of thing, you know, they don't go out dancing or anything like that. They're real old-fashioned, down-to-earth. Crystal Holcomb, pictured center, the daughter-in-law of Brian and Carla Holcomb, was among those killed, along with 3 of her 5 children, all pictured left, Emily standing tallest, Megan and Greg. Her husband John Wright and their other 2 children survived the massacre. Joanne and Brooke Ward and Emily Garza, mother of 4, Joanne Ward and 2 of her daughters, 6-year-old Brooke Ward and 8-year-old Emily Garza, were among the victims. Crystal Holcomb was married to Brian and Carla Holcomb's son John, pictured together, and had been At church with her in-laws when she was shot dead. Joanne's sister-in-law Leslie Ward said she rushed to the church after hearing the gunfire from her home, and found her 6-year-old nephew Ryland lying in the pews. He is still in hospital after undergoing emergency surgery. Joanne's eldest daughter Rihanna, 9, had the glasses shot off her face but escaped injury by hiding under a pew as shots rang out. Joanne's husband Chris was not at the church because he works the night shift and had stayed home that morning. In the first hours after the shooting, some media erroneously reported Chris as the shooter. Joanne Ward, pictured, was among the 26 people gunned down when Devin Patrick Kelly burst into the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs in Texas and opened fire. Sisters 6-year-old Brooke left and 8-year-old Emily Garza, pictured right, sitting on the right, next to her sister Rihanna, were killed in the shooting according to her family. 9-year-old Rihanna, sitting next to Emily, had her glasses shot off her face but survived. Robert and Shani Corrigan, the Corrigans, originally from Michigan, were named among those killed, according to the Clare County Director of Veterans Services. Robert Corrigan was an Air Force retiree and the couple has 2 sons currently on active duty. Angela Teague Heron paid tribute to him as a true mentor. Air Force veteran Robert and Shani Corrigan, originally from Michigan, were named among those killed. They have 2 sons who are currently on active duty. You were not easy. You were a leader who gave me expectations and I respected you enough to listen to you. I didn't always like what you said, but you allowed me to tell you and together, you let me flourish. Lula Wojcinski White was the 71-year-old grandmother of Kelly's wife Danielle. She was a devout member of the First Baptist Church, as was described a wonderful, caring person, a God-loving person by her relative Mary Mishler Cliburn. Gunman's grandmother-in-law Lula White, pictured with victim Brian Holcomb, was in the church when Kelly opened fire. It is thought Kelly was targeting Lula's daughter Danielle, but she wasn't in the church at the time. I miss her badly already. We texted every day. We loved each other to the moon and back. Haley Kruger, 16-year-old Haley, described in her GoFundMe page as beautiful and vibrant, dreamed of becoming an intensive care nurse. Her death comes 2 years after her father died. Her mother Charlene UHL said Haley had arrived early on Sunday morning to help prepare breakfast for the parishioner. She just loved life and loved everybody she met, she said. She loved her church. She was always hyper and ready for anything. Beautiful and vibrant Haley Kruger dreamed of being a NICU nurse and arrived at the parish earlier on Sunday to help with breakfast. Richard and Therese Rodriguez. Richard's daughter Regina Rodriguez confirmed that her father and his wife were among the deceased. She posted a heartbreaking photograph of her and her father to Facebook hours after the massacre. On Sunday, Regina walked up to the police barricade a few hours after the shooting and said her 51-year-old father attended the church every Sunday. Heartbreaking goodbye. Richard Rodriguez, pictured with his daughter Regina, died in the shooting along with his wife Therese. Richard, 51, attended church every Sunday. Tara McNulty. Bartender Tara McNulty was among those killed while her children were wounded but survived, according to Kevin Conan, her boss at the Oman Saloon. The Oman Saloon is holding a fundraiser for Tara's funeral costs and her children's medical expenses, with Conan paying tribute to her on her GoFundMe page. As a great employee, conscientious, engaging and always willing to do the little things. She was a sweet, kind and loving woman, mother and daughter, and will be greatly missed by many. Always willing to do the little things. Tara McNulty was killed in the massacre but her children survived. A fundraiser is being held this Saturday to raise money for her funeral costs and her children's medical expenses.